Welcome everybody. I am absolutely delighted that we're going to get a chance to chat with Saffron about this wonderful book. And here we are. I'm going to just reach behind me and here we have. Well done, absolutely, Saffron. Well done. Setting out for construction. You know, just this. It's been a journey. Exactly. You know, definitely a round of applause from everybody here for you. A silent round of applause even for them. It's been an absolute delight to work with you on this book, and what we would say is it's been quite a journey for us. You were telling earlier, probably 4 years in the making. But before we kind of start and get into that, I just wanted to say a little bit about what it's been like for me getting to know Saffron over the last, certainly the last few years. She is just an amazing lady, absolutely amazing lady. And for me, I think I got to know Saffron actually through our mutual friend Alison. Alison Mackenzie is actually on the call today. We have been part of Alison's mastermind group for a few years, along with a few others who I think are probably joining us. And it's been, I think there's somebody else's phone, just thinking everybody else is on mute. It's been great to get to know Saffron, because she is one of the most hardworking women that I think I've ever met. She is a woman of vision as well, because she sees a problem or something going on in the world that she wants to improve, and just kind of has this ability to find a way to solve things. I mean, that's what I think is amazing for me in terms of working with Saffron. She just has this vision, and things, though, she would probably say kind of magically sometimes kind of fall into place. But it's because I think of her vision and her commitment and her hard work and the people that she surrounds herself with. Because so many of I know the women that have been part of the mastermind group with her, we all value Saffron's commitment and Saffron's contribution that she makes whenever we're together, because she has a warmth of heart and just such an encouraging nature, and it has been an absolute joy to get to know her even more as we've been working on this book. So what I would normally do is kind of say almost kind of like welcome to the stage is what you mean. But what I say is, I think now is the chance for us all just to, as let's say maybe in a silent kind of like clap, give her a warm welcome, a big kind of round of applause. Welcome, Saffron. We are delighted to have you here.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you for that lovely introduction as well. I'm hoping it's not showing up on the camera that I've gone bright red.
Absolutely, thoroughly deserved, and a lot more accolades besides. So we're here to celebrate this book, because we started on this journey a few years ago, as I think you were saying earlier, probably 4 years ago. For those of you who didn't join JIT, she said she kind of one day she probably didn't have anything to do and thought, maybe just write a book. And I remember when we first had the conversation, your idea was this was going to be a pocket book. This was going to be the pocket guide to setting out for construction that you could just carry around with me. Now, what I'm interested in is how many have got big enough pockets actually to carry that with us, because it kind of grew. It grew arms and legs, but it grew arms and legs really for me, I think, working with you because of your passion to make sure that people had all the knowledge and practical advice that you could give them to help them do their jobs. Can you actually remember back that far as to the start of this journey and starting to write, and what you hoped? I suppose, what did you hope you wanted the book to do really right at the very start?
Well, I can remember that far back, and you're right. I did think that it was going to be a pocket book, and I thought it was going to be about the size of Noah Collins' mini dictionary or something like that, which I was clearly wrong about that. But what I hoped for it to do, well, and I just, like, when I was running the training courses, I discovered that surprisingly that most people didn't seem to have all of the basic information, like the fundamental information that you would need to have to do you know, a decent job as a site engineer. And you know, quite a few people asked me, is there a book you can recommend? And I had about 4 or 5 different books, and some of them were up to 800 pages long. And they were good for what they were for, but there was only a few pages in each one of them that would be of any practical use to a site engineer. In other words, I know what I want to do, or, you know, how do I actually do that? That was kind of lacking. There's a lot of academic textbooks, so I felt there was a need to create something that just answered what in my mind are the most simple and obvious questions, because a lot of the other books just went over my head anyway.
and I think the feedback that you've had from people who've actually had a chance to look at it and read it is that it is a practical guide. It is something that is, you know, that people can actually read and understand and work their way through. And you've put it together in such a way that you've got lots of practical help and tips, and there's some Q&A stuff in there as well, isn't there?
Yeah, well, the way I've written it is, I was thinking I've written it in the way that I would like to have a book that I would want to read. So my attention span for reading a paragraph of text, it doesn't exist. I can read a few lines before my mind goes wandering off. So I thought, how would I want this book to be if I was a site engineer? And then I kind of thought, actually, it's the way that I think probably young people access information today. So you might ask, if you have a question you want the answer to, you might Google it, and then you look at that answer, and then you go and get on with it, or that might lead you to another question, and you Google that, and so what the way I've written it is, for every time when I was writing it, I was thinking, well, that's going to raise another question, so I'd pull out that question and make that a heading and answer that question, and that would give me like 5 more questions. So I've written it as in, you know, I think I haven't actually counted it, but there's probably hundreds of questions in there with, you know, with pretty bite-sized answers.
Yep. And now we can understand why it grew from being the little pocketbook that you had at the start into this, because it was, like you say, every time that you answered a question, you thought, there's something else I need to help explain.
Yeah, that's right. And I couldn't have done it in a pocketbook, because there would have been, you know, critical information missing.
Yeah. And that was the thing for you as well, that it had to be practical, accessible. Like you say, that the questions that you've got, the way that it's been put together, that people can actually dip in and find what it is that they're actually wanting, that they go to that piece of advice and then read that and then come away. But you've also got tons of like photographs and, you know, as well, that are in there to try and the diagrams to try and explain exactly. You had a huge amount of work to put that all together.
Yeah, it's funny that about the diagrams, because I think well, I think there was originally about 200 diagrams, and I sat and I think I sent Chris and the girls away to Ireland for 2 weeks over Christmas and New Year, like just after Christmas, and I sat and I hand drew every single one of them with a sharp pencil and a ruler, and then sent them over to you to get them worked up into, you know, diagrams that could go into the book. The photographs, you know, some people just gave me some absolutely brilliant photographs that I could use. But what I didn't realise, that writing the book, which you would think would be the 95% of the work, actually writing the book was only about 5% of the work, and the other 95% was getting the diagrams, the photographs, and consulting with people like who might be readers of the book, or who might be supervisors to site engineers. Because what I didn't want to do was just put out a book that I thought the industry needed. I wanted to put out a book that was made with you know, in consultation with the people who would be using it. So that was, I think that's probably that last bit has probably taken the best part of 2 years.
Yep. And it's been a labour of love.
Yes.
And I know that as everybody was sitting around you going, oh goodness, you know, but it has been, it has been, you know, like you say, putting a book like this together isn't an easy process. Like, you know, there are all the elements that you've had to consider, and excuse me, and all the parts to come together so that it actually ends up, you know, with something that you can be proud of and that you know is really going to reach your audience, you know, and everybody's going to say that. And Cheryl's just said, well done, Saffron, you know. So yeah, because that's it, you know. I mean, look, I mean, this is it. And yeah, it's been an interesting journey for us working with you, because for those of you who don't know, my name's Kim MacLeod. I'm from Indie Authors World, and we work with writers producing all sorts of different books. And this is the biggest book that we've ever worked on, and probably the most technical book that we've worked on. So there were challenges, I think, for us as well along the way to try and figure out how best that we could then get your words and your diagrams and everything, you know, to kind of really, so that your readers are going to be able to understand it. So we had a bit of to and fro and back and forward. That was the thing. It was a collaboration of, okay, let's work on this part, let's move to the next. In the same way as you have done, I suppose, with you collaborating with all the people who were out there who were able to help you, just give you some questions, and you know, and I think I'm really proud of what you've managed to achieve with this, because I think you've done an amazing job, and I know already that, you know, from the people that have seen it, that they're saying, great, it's definitely what was needed. It was what's been missing. So you know, congratulations. It's just, you know, excellent. Well done. I want to kind of talk a wee bit now about how this links, and what you say now, how this links with the work that you're also doing, because you're working a lot now in the kind of digital construction field. And, you know, looking at raising digital construction skills. So do you want to just kind of tell us a wee bit about how, you know, how you've gone from, you know, from setting out into, you know, what was it else you saw? Because almost for me, this is another Saffron, seeing that there's a need for something else, and you're pivoting your ability to look at another problem.
Yeah, funnily, at the time when I wrote the book, I didn't really even grasp myself how it would fit in with the kind of other stuff that was going to come into my life. But now I realise that everything kind of is a jigsaw puzzle, and that's one important piece of it, because what I have covered in the book is the basic and fundamental skills that site engineers need in terms of understanding how things fit together, literally, not metaphorically, but literally. So how does that information from the drawing end up physically as something that's been constructed in the right place, at the right position, to the right, you know, the right level, and how that, you know, the kind of spatial reasoning, the basic maths that is involved in that, I didn't really realise before, but I do now what an important stepping stone that is, to be able to kind of digitalise that process and understand, you know, the technology these days on site, it kind of, the digital element can be used, but it unfortunately can give the impression that a site engineer knows what they're doing, even to them. But you know, there's a basic foundational knowledge missing. So what I hope will happen is that this will allow kind of to accelerate the adoption of digital you know, processes on site, in terms of, you know, scanning technology, you know, just basically the things that if you leap to them without understanding the basics, you're walking a bit of a tightrope, really, if you don't understand what can go wrong and how to put it right if it does go wrong.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the thing, isn't it, that at certain times technology will let us down. And so there's a need for people to understand that, even that, how is that technology working, how is it calculating things,
understanding what is that doing, how is that computer or that piece of equipment arrived at that answer, rather than just blindly saying, all right, okay, that's the number, you know, just export that. So that I feel it's an important foundation.
Yeah. And
that.
It's funny because I've been walking around. We've got a few construction sites near us. There's a house builder down the road, and I'm walking around going, "Oh, I can recognise some of that. You recognise some of that." But what are the impacts, I suppose? Because of if this whole idea of like this practical guide to site surveying. If something goes wrong, if something starts wrong at this, if somebody makes an error somewhere. What are the real implications of that? And
the implications are infinite, to be honest, Kim. And it's one of these things when if everything's going right, you don't really think too much about it. But if you're not following good practice, literally hundreds of thousands of pounds. Buildings have been set out in 1 metre over a boundary line, which has cost millions of pounds because you're then into somebody else's land and they can hold you to ransom, to kind of smaller everyday things like you're setting out is slightly too high or too low, which means you're then going to use more concrete or more tar, and that's going to cost more money to the job. So there's a whole spectrum of things that can go wrong. But yeah, it's bringing things to in fact, I think that there's almost a full chapter in the book about what can go wrong if you don't follow good practice. And it's not just that one error that you've made that might affect everything that is constructed after that. It might mean that it has to go off for redesign, that you're costing tens, hundreds of thousands of pounds that could run into. But it's about the engineer's reputation, but it's about their confidence. And one of the reasons I wrote this book was because I've come across so many engineers, and it's through no fault of their own, that they are living a life of anxiety and stress. And they go home at night, and I've been there myself, thinking I'm going to have to get up at 4:30 in the morning and go in and check that before the concrete arrives. You can't ever relax even when you're at home. So I wanted to create something that would support engineers and take that anxiety away, so that if they follow everything, if they follow good practice, that means they can go home at the end of the day knowing that everything they've done that day was correct and it's been properly checked and properly recorded. So that's the kind of human element of why I wrote the book.
Yeah. And we were talking last week about your hope as well, that the book becomes almost a part of a supplemental text. Maybe universities start to maybe even look at it, or that it's there to support the learnings for students coming through, so they don't have those kind of practical gaps. And do you think is that a key factor for you as well?
Yeah. Again, I mean, I'll be the first one to admit that maybe 7 or 8 years ago I had quite a dim view of the way that this subject is delivered in colleges and universities, because it does make or break whether an engineer has the confidence to go out and do this. But actually, over the last few years, I've been doing some more research into it and got a better understanding. And actually, lecturers are feeling that they don't have the resources they need. A lecturer, I've come across lecturers who were electricians, and they've been handed this module and said, well, you need to deliver this module. They've never done it in real life. They've never used the equipment, but this isn't something you can just learn from a book. If you haven't got the confidence to do this yourself, then how can you be expected to teach it to other young people who have got to go out there with one peg in the hand, with a hammer in the other hand, and go and bang that into the ground in the right place, that somebody's then going to come along and dig a hole or pour a concrete slab to that mark that they have made. They're the most, the least experienced person on site, the least paid, but they potentially can do horrendous damage. So it is very stressful. So yeah, I wanted to create a resource that colleges and universities can use as well.
Yeah. Yeah, because like you say, the young people coming forward and coming through into the construction industry are, you know, like you say, if you've been there, you know what it was like, you know the stress that could be under.
Yeah.
If you can actually help, you know, people come out there feeling more confident and knowing that they can actually access something that's practical, that would be a huge achievement. If you're reducing people's stress levels, Saffron, then that's,
well,
you know, that's great.
That's actually what motivated me the most, is that if I was running X amount of courses per week, you know, I can only reach a tiny fraction of the people, you know, within a, say, a 30-mile radius of Glasgow. But I wanted to create something like the source of knowledge, so that it could be disseminated much more widely, so that there's a tipping point in the culture of this.
Yeah. And I think I think this is just the start of the process, this book going out. You know, that's like, you know, it's written, it's published, it's now, you know, out there, and it's going to take its own path now. People are going to find it, and, you know, get to know about it, get to talk about it, and hopefully, you know, then they share that with their colleagues, and people start to kind of realise that this is a really useful guide that can help them de-stress, feel more confident about what they're doing, and that'll just be an amazing achievement for you to have.
Yeah, hopefully that was the case.
We've had a few people asking if you would do a reading from the book.
I can't even imagine what I would read from it. No, I can't. I don't even know. I don't want to send some people off to sleep with that.
Well, maybe.
The book is propping up my computer, so if I was to lift it up, my computer would fall over.
I think that maybe if I will read just a little bit from here, and actually says, right, that I'm going to read what other people have said about this book. How about that? Because that's probably
right, okay.
Maybe, because maybe not everybody wants to read about, you know, picking a question out and setting out, because we're not all techie folk that are in here just now. But other people have said that this book is an excellent reference for all new and experienced engineers alike, and anyone who thinks that they know everything or have seen it all will one day find assumption is the mother of all mistakes. And that was Phil Langrish, the managing director of Apps in CAD. So there you go. There's a little bit of a reading out of the book, because in normal, and I understand what people are saying, at a book launch you would often have, let's sit down and let's have a reading. You know, it's maybe not quite a whodunit, or it might be a whodunit. You know, who didn't do it.
It's a whodunit when something goes wrong on site. It's a who done that mistake.
So what I'd like to is then just, so moving forward in terms of what you're working on now, you know, so because you're still, you have got you're setting out for construction as your company, and you have got kind of training, as you say, that go along with what you're doing with the book, but you're involved in some other projects. Can you share a wee bit about what else that you've been working with?
Well, the kind of digital construction project, which is to help to give leaders the skills they need so that they can drive digital transformation within their construction business. That's one thing. Another thing that I'm involved in is trying to work with colleges and universities and create like resource packs and drawing packages, and help them get access to the right software. Because one thing that I've found through some research that was commissioned that I did was that the lecturers aren't up to date with the basic softwares that engineers are going to be using, and they're not aware of the digital tools that are available. That's generalising, but but lecturers have been out of a lot of them have been out of the industry for many years. So that's what's kind of on my radar at the moment, is going in at the level where we shouldn't be having to give training to graduates on this. I would love to do myself out of a job for setting out for construction and never have to teach another graduate, because it's taught so well in colleges and universities. So that's one of the places that I'm turning my attention as well.
Yeah, and that's what I said earlier. It's here we have you see issues or you see problems that are there, and there are so many people who will just in life complain and moan about a problem or something that exists because they don't really see that they can have an influence on it. And what I think is always amazing about you, Saffron, is that you just have this, you see there's a problem there, but you just start to think about, well, what could I do to help? And and that's how, that's what it's how this book came about, but it's also how you help solve some of these problems in the world. But you do it in such a collaborative way. You bring people together, and that's what you've done as well with the digital construction stuff as well, isn't it? You've brought a team of different people together to start helping, improve.
Yeah, because I think there's this isn't about one person or one person's idea about how things should be changed. It's about facilitating the changes and allowing the changes to happen by bringing the right people together.
Yeah. So we've got a question, right? There's a question actually come up there about, has the digital version got more or equal content to the book, to the book that's here?
Yeah, the digital book. Yeah, it's basically just the book, and it's not. It's actually not as easy to read as the hard copy book. So, if you wanted something digital, you might be better to look at the e-learning modules that we've got, which basically reflects most of what is in the book, but it's not written out. It's videos explaining it and animations, and if you write this number here, add it to that one, and it takes you through it all step by step. So it mirrors the content, but it's not just reading it.
Yeah, and I think that's just the realities of the challenges still. This is maybe another problem that you might actually want to start looking at solving then, Saffron. Because it's the limitations of ebook technology. It's not gone as far yet for something like this, in this standard, in the way of the for mass production and mass access to books. It's not something that Kindle can handle, as an for an example. Just doesn't it doesn't there. So
I'm just laughing at Nigel's comment there. You can't prop up your laptop with a digital version.
Exactly. And I think for most people as well, like you say, it's this sort of book something you come back to. There are probably people who will write notes in it, and just and have their own wee kind of their own examples of things and kind of things that are written there. So yeah, and in normal circumstances we would have had you signing copies of the books for people there. Although I know that there are some folk who've already sat there just now who've got a signed copy from you, which is great. Right, I'm going to see now if anybody, so I'm actually got you at the moment on speaker view, so I'm going to come back to the gallery view so I can see everybody. And if anybody's got a question that they'd like to ask, whether it's about, just generally about, right, okay, we've got, Alison, was that a way that you want to ask a question? Right, okay, there we go, right, we have unmuted you, Alison, so yeah, on you go, come and ask us your question.
Congratulations, first of all, Saffron. Amazing. I think you're just incredible, and I'm just so thrilled for you today. And also to you, Kim. I know that this has been a big project for you guys as well. My question, Saffron, is what have you learned about yourself in writing this book and this being on this journey?
Oh, well, for one thing, I've learned what amazing friends I've got, an amazing support network that I've got around me. But what have I learned about myself? A lot. I've learned how to articulate some really complex problems in a really succinct way, which has helped with my training delivery. I've learned how important it is to, because I've got a habit of just thinking, oh, that's a brilliant idea, and because I think it's a brilliant idea, then it must be a brilliant idea. So I've learned how important it is to bounce things off other people and get, kind of bring that into what I've been doing as well.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, Alison.
Thanks, Alison. Anybody else? Debbie? Hi, Debbie. Yeah,
Hi,
what's your...
Saffron. Yes, yes, congratulations. I've been
you.
thinking about writing a book, but I'm not sure I want to go on such an adventure. But I've got a question for you. What's the impact going to be of more of the off-site stuff that we're going to see in the sector, and therefore meaning that when people are actually on site, in some ways setting out, concerns more assembly, yes, of very valuable parts where there's equally, a huge number of risks as well, yes, and unknowns, yes.
Well, the good thing about this, Debbie, you'll know this yourself as a civil engineer, that setting out actually hasn't changed in thousands of years, and the principles of setting out haven't changed in thousands of years. So the fundamental principles in here are going to be equally as applicable to off-site things that are brought onto site and fitted together. Yes, there will be more of a digital element to it, tracking components and as-built scans and importing into the 3D model. But at the end of the day, 3D coordinates are still 3D coordinates, and a distance is still a distance, and that's really what the book is about.
Thank you. Anybody else got a question? I'm just aware I've got 2 pages here, just in case anybody starts to put their hand up. I'll just check and see if there's anybody on the other side of my screen here. They're all shy now, Saffron. Anything other than technical stuff? Because this is the thing, is that we've got this, we can be quizzing her on, some questions in there about the kind of technical side. Anybody else want to ask Saffron anything around, just around about how she manages to keep so cheerful, or because that's something I suppose that's the thing, is that how have you managed your stress during this process?
Well, my answer to that is, well, what's the alternative? So even when things get stressful, I can somehow manage to find a positive in that, and I blame people like you and Alison McKenzie for that, and I'd start thinking, oh, I wonder why this really stressful situation is a brilliant gift for me. What opportunity is this really stressful situation bringing me? So that's I think that's how I deal with it, by turning it into an opportunity.
Okay, Nigel has a question. Nigel, do you want to unmute yourself and ask it? Or
yeah, I can answer it. It's well done, Saffron. It looks a fantastic book. I haven't seen it yet. I've only just ordered it. So
I thought I'd sent you a copy, Nigel.
No, well, we bought one. Why should we get a free one? That's fine. What?
Well, because you helped with it.
What are your hopes and aspirations for the book? Simple
well,
question.
I would like it to become, if it was sitting on every site engineer's desk in every site office, then that would make me happy. Not from an egotistical point of view, but because I am so passionate that I think I just genuinely feel for engineers who are trying to do the job under so much pressure, without the right training and without the right resources. And I just really want every site engineer out there to have access to the information that is going to support them to do their job. And again, if we got to a stage then when the book wasn't even needed because it was, the cultural knowledge was, so widespread, then that would be even better.
Oh, there we go. I've got a question here. There we go. Annie, yes, I think hopefully you should be able to hear you. Yeah. Oh, a minute. Let's try again. There we are. Try that now.
Can you hear me?
Oh, that's it. Yeah, can now. Yep.
I've forgotten my question now. Yeah, what I was going to say was, do you think, will it be possible for universities to put it on their set reading list? And if they do, how will you be able to let students get access to it at a more reasonable cost?
Yeah, I don't know, because I know universities well, I understand universities are trying to think of a polite way to say this, but they do not necessarily favour self-published books in the way that they would favour something that might have come from, you know, Oxford Publishing or something like that. But I'm going to go direct to lecturers, and they will be able to order it in bulk or get, you know, the reseller discount to make it available to students at a cheaper price.
So we've just got another question. What are some unwritten content that you wish you could put in the book? Is there anything else that you think that you haven't added to it that you would?
Honestly, I could have written probably the same again, to be honest. I'm trying to think of anything in particular. I would love to have put in more about the different kind of buzzwords and lingo and the different, you know, there's so many different abbreviations on sites and so many words that when I was on site, I was thinking, well, why can't you just call it what it is? Why do you have to have all these technical words for it? So if I could go back in, you know, if I could go back in time to being like a fresh graduate on site, I would gather all the words that people use that I didn't know what they meant, and I would have, you know, put in a kind of glossary of terms. But I was thinking, you know, that technically that's not to do with setting out, it's to do with just more general construction. But I do, I have written quite a good bit of that next book, sad to say.
So there we are. So Saffron said she was never doing another book, but here we are. So Madeline, I'll come to you. There we are. You've got a question.
Yes, thank you. First of all, congratulations, Saffron, from both me and from Phil. My question is, if there was a dream person that you could put your book into their hands, who would that be?
Great question.
Oh gosh. Do they have to be dead or alive? Do they have to
Your
be
choice.
alive?
Anybody.
I'd probably like to run it by somebody like Robert Brunel or something like that, just to see what they thought of it. Yeah, good question.
Great answer. Thank you.
Thanks, Madeline. I was thinking of George Clooney, but that's just
It's a different angle.
I'm sure we could get him kind of like just modelling the book for you or something like that, you know. Just anybody else got a question? Anything else that they want to ask? I think we've got, just check just in case anybody's waving at me on the next page. I don't see any. I don't see any more questions. So Saffron, what's next for you then?
Oh, well, I think I'm going to have a bit of a break from mad, crazy ideas. But unfortunately, whenever I say that, that's when the kind of mad, crazy ideas pop into my head. So I'm trying not to say I'll have a break, because somewhere in the universe, someone goes, no, you're not having a break. But that's my plan, is to have a little bit of a rest from any starting new ventures. But I suspect that will probably last a few days.
Famous last words, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we've just got a note here that Stephen's saying, hi Saffron, I'm going into my 4th year of a part-time civil engineering degree. We don't have any surveying or setting out modules, which is very disappointing. And he's attended your 5-day course and have a few books to try and fill in some gaps so far in depth. I've had a good read at your book and over the last few days since receiving it, and it's true what it says. It's the most useful and easy to follow book on setting out. It will be on site with me all of the time. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Exactly what we are.
Made my day.
There we are. That's a perfect way to, I think, probably to kind of wrap up the questions. So what I'm actually would like everybody to do, if you is that if those of you who've got your cameras off, if you wouldn't mind, actually if you can switch your cameras on, I'm actually going to unmute everybody for a wee second as well, so it'll be utter chaos with noise, but I'd like us all just to give Saffron you know, a big cheer, a big, you know, and a real round of applause that she can actually experience that, and so that we can, that's great. And if you don't mind, I'm going to take a wee photograph just so that I can get, so I'm going to unmute everybody. There we go. So there's some cameras coming on, so you get to see this. You get to see these nice, happy, smiling faces that have all been here to see you. So can I, first of all, so after 3, can we give her a big cheer and a big round of applause? So 1, 2, 3.
Yay!
Congratulations.
Well done. And if anybody else has a glass, I know that 1 or 2 maybe had something, whether it's a cup or anything else, can we just say, cheers, Saffron, congratulations and well done.
Cheers.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming as well.
Well done, Saffron. Really proud of you.
Thank you.
I don't know how you do it, but well done.
Thank you.
Yep, she's a marvel. And for anybody who was looking, there is a link right at the very start of the comments. There is a link to Saffron's website where you can get your book if they don't have the book. But it is available now, feeding its way out to other retailers as well. But if you want to get a signed copy from Saffron, that's always nice.
I was just going to say, if anybody hasn't got it yet and they want it, if you use the code SOFC829, you'll get 15% off.
There you are. A bargain as well. She's giving you all a gift. So can we say thank you so much to everybody for coming along. It's been a joy. I'm just going to get a little photograph, if you don't mind, so that we can actually take a wee still shot of you all kind of just giving a big smile. See if we can see. There we go. We'll get a few. There we are. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming along to Saffron's book launch. Congratulations, Saffron.
Thank you.
Book. Well done. We're really proud of you, and I hope it's a great success. I'm sure it will. So congratulations. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us.
Well done, Saffron.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.